uh, this coming session, I don't know if we'll be able to pay out a full PFD, but if we can work hard over the next few years to make sure that in maybe 3 years we're able to get the PFD back to a sustainable payout for all of Alaska. So that's my take on the permanent fund.
Okay, thank you, Josiah. While sufficient funding is a major component of public safety, recruitment and retention of qualified state troopers and VSPOs is a major issue. What are your plans to address these challenges? Josiah?
Yeah, I think there's good opportunities again for that big public partnership with whether it's the tribe or the local municipality, to work together to make sure that we have a long-term law enforcement arm within whatever village that we're talking of. What it does is it rolls all the way back. You pull back from all of these little issues. And I don't mean little that they're meaningless. What I mean is that we need to be looking at the big picture here, and what it ties back to is the economic base of the region, and striving for making an attractive environment for investment so that we can grow our economic bases. Here in the North Slope Borough, we've got a strong economic base, and we're able to handle our law enforcement at the political subdivision of the state, which is the North Slope Borough. And that's my vision for the rest of House District 40, is we need to make it a strong economic base for the local municipality so that we can do the things that we want to do here locally. And when I say local control, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So again, it ties back to a long-term plan. In the short term, we need to make sure that we budget for the proper VPSOs and law enforcement in the villages. But again, we're going to go every year to every year, and it's going to be, I don't know if we're going to be able to fund this next year, right? We need to get away from that mentality. We need to get to the long-term plan. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
Yeah, thanks. Public safety is really, really close to my heart, as I know it is for families across the district, in the Northwest Arctic, in North Slope, out in Alikakit and Alatna and Hughes. We must feel safe in our homes, and we must feel safe in our communities. Our communities deserve the same resources as communities in urban Alaska. Unfortunately, the state has failed our communities time and again by not making the flow of funds to VPSO grantees or to communities easier. We've seen the Northwest Arctic Borough here is a VPSO grantee, and they're struggling to recruit and retain VPSOs because they don't have, they're restricted on what they can spend that granting money on. The $1 million that they get, they can't spend that on housing or more equipment. And those are real changes that we can implement this year that will make a big difference in law enforcement presence in our communities. I recognize and applaud what the North Slope Borough has been able to do with their revenues and creating their own law enforcement program. That's really wonderful for their communities, but that's not the case for all of our communities. I think, another key is empowering tribes to exercise their rights and power to improve public safety in our communities. A lot of our tribes are already doing that. If we further empower them to provide those services, to police their own people, to take care of their communities, then I think we're, not only saving money on the state side, but also, seeing real meaningful law enforcement that we haven't been able to see in a while. I think there's a long way to go as far as public safety goes, but there are very apparent steps and solutions that we can do this session that will make a big difference for law enforcement in our communities.
Okay, thank you. Moving on. Budget cut proponents argue against more spending for education, arguing that Alaska has some of the highest per capita spending on education of anywhere in the U.S., and yet lags behind the vast majority of states when it comes to key proficiencies in math and reading. How would you propose addressing our state's educational challenges, particularly in rural Alaska? Elizabeth?
Yeah, thanks. I work here. I work for the Northwest Arctic Borough School District, and I see day in and day out what our education systems mean for our communities, the kind of love and dedication our educators have for our communities and our people and our students. The education budget is one of the largest budget items on the operating budget, but that's because, Alaska is so vast and so unique, and we have, case law that shows the importance of funding education in a meaningful way. Not only that, it's constitutionally mandated that the state fund education. And if we continue to gut our education system, we're looking at lawsuits like the Kasaili case and the Moore case, and we can't afford that. We need to find a sustainable plan for education, whether that's tribal compacting, allowing tribes to access federal money and state support to provide education services to our communities. I think that is a feasible plan, very potential to help address this issue. Once we get into tribal compacting or local control with education, then we can start seeing more culturally and locally relevant curriculum. That's been really close to my heart, and I've talked about this a few times, is that, if we want to see test scores improve, if we want to see students' interests rise in school, we have to begin teaching them curriculum that's actually interesting to them and that's actually relevant to them. And that starts with culturally and locally relevant curriculum. On top of that, we've seen with the pandemic the struggles of attendance rates because, some schools are closed and they're doing fully remote learning. And we're seeing that without sports, students just aren't interested in school. And so by finding and building new opportunities in the school system, extracurriculars, really expanding on those to build interest with sports, but even outside of sports, with sports being the defining factor on whether or not a kid participates in school one year is a little concerning. And if we can expand on more extracurriculars and more opportunities within the education system, then I think we'll see student interest and higher test scores and better attendance rates. And I really look forward to tackling these issues. I mean, like I've said, educators and the schools and the education system as a whole in all of our communities throughout the entire district and throughout rural Alaska is so important. The schools are the heart of our communities, and I am 100% behind coming up with a sustainable plan for education that benefits our students, our educators, and our communities as a whole.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Josiah?
Education is a very interesting topic, right? We got to be careful what kind of projection we put upon our youth growing up, as far as our definition of success and their definition of success. I've seen some of the least active students in the classroom that are above par in relation to anyone when it comes to our cultural activities, whether it's whaling or fishing, caribou hunting, subsistence hunting, any of that. So I think as far as funding, right, we need to continue to push for funding our local public education. And it's very true that we need to find some locally relevant curriculum and implement it. And it's something we've been pushing for here in the North Slope Borough School District since before I was born. And I'm a product of that public school where it was opportunities to learn everything about mathematics and all of that. But there's also that responsibility at home from the household that you're making sure and growing that. I mean, I remember growing up, I'd lobby my parents to to let me go camping, and my mom always made sure that education in school was priority. And if you're going to go camping, you're going to pack your books in the bag and make sure and do your schoolwork upriver or something. So going back to education as a kind of as a philosophy, right? There's other creative ways that we can produce youth who are effective members of society, not only through public education and kind of the arts of the discussion, but there's also trade opportunities that we need to capitalize on. I know here locally in the North Slope Borough, we've been having back and forth discussions with not only the school district, the mayor, but major players in the oil industry as far as creating some type of trade school where we're able to expose our juniors and seniors to welding, to heavy equipment operating, stuff like that. Even basic construction. I mean, we talk about our housing issues, and that's one of the things that attracted me to getting a construction job was, man, I can do construction between my day job, and then when I go home, I can work on my house and apply the same thing that I'm learning there. And so those are the type of opportunities that we need to continue to look for our youth to pursue. And really flying, getting a pilot's license, that's something that I'd like to see some type of program here locally within our district that we can push towards. So as far as public education goes, I mean, I push for it, and my sister is currently a teacher in the school, the Pollock Elementary School, and she does everything she can to make sure that our kids are learning culturally relevant curriculum. And anytime she needs help with that, I offer up what I can, and my wife does too. So it's that local control, and these are the type of things that I talk about when I talk about local control. And that's kind of what my meaning is we have our own opportunity to control our destiny, if you think about it. So that's my thoughts on education.
Okay, thank you, Josiah. As you guys know, COVID has been really tough on many aspects of the economy, particularly with natural resources, the natural resource sector, which is important to House District 40. What can you do as a legislator to help expand the economic base of the district? Josiah?
So the economic base of our district, right? When you look at the two regions, one of the big ones in NWAB is going to be Red Dog Mine, and they have a lot of mineral resources. And here on the North Slope Borough, we've got a lot of oil and gas development resources. And again, it's striking that balance between the two, right? We need to make sure that we look after and be culturally and subsistently having that mindset that at the end of the day, that's what we got to protect. At the same time, we need our rights to our resources, whether they're the animals that we hunt or the in the ground resources, right? The oil and gas and the energy resources and the mining resources. So amidst COVID, I know over in Prudhoe Bay, they've done a lot of juggling folks' schedules, whether coming from the lower 48 and all of that, and getting employees on longer term shifts. But it's the economic basis. All of these issues that we deal with, we can tie it back to the economic base and whether or not we have the resources to combat them. And so going over into Nana region and NWAB region, there's the Ambler Mining District and the Noatak Mining District they're looking at pursuing. And there we just need to make sure and strike the proper balance between our culturally and subsistent resources and